Welcome to a quick analysis of the new Monster Hunter World trailer. Immediately we can see three things here on the hunter. First of all, the very well-known greatsword on his back, obviously telling us this is Monster Hunter. And then two new additions which seem to be integral new mechanics. A lantern on his hip filled with fireflies and a little arm catapult attached to his left arm there. This part shows there will be little transition areas in parts where you probably press a button and your hunter plays an animation to move from one area to the other. Here you can see a harvestable plant being highlighted by the green fireflies from the hunter's lantern. This allows you to see interactable objects from further away. You don't have to move up to them to wait for a button prompt to pop up before you can harvest them. You know immediately I can walk over there and harvest it. This shows us swimming and diving is in the game, but does not confirm underwater combat. Here the hunter uses what looks like a hard fruit, actually looks like an apple, from his arm catapult that he has attached to his left arm to shoot down a high-hanging fruit and then later harvest it. Here we see the green fireflies in action once more, and it shows us multiple things. First of all, you can see on the left side the fireflies coming out of the lantern and heading over to those red mushrooms in the background. They're going to be highlighting that, meaning those are harvestable. At the same time, the fireflies have now found the tracks of the monster right there, which you can then probably interact with, or they just show you in which direction to go. Meanwhile, on the right, you can see another basically string or beam of fireflies heading off to the right, probably to highlight yet another item. So this is basically a detective mode that shows you what you can interact with in your area. Here the hunter was spotted by the monsters, so the fireflies turn red to tell you that you were spotted, which means the fireflies are not just a detective mode, they're also a warning system that tells you whether monsters see you or don't see you, whether you engaged in combat or not. Here you can see the hunter using a different kind of ammunition for his arm catapult. It's a fire ammunition. It repels the monsters. They interact with it. They're afraid of it. And we, for the first time, get a proper look at the arm catapult as well, being reloaded there with new ammunition at the bottom. You can barely see him, but the hunter is actually hiding in those bushes from the monsters who cannot spot him, giving us the first look at the stealth system that's going to be in the game. First look at new harvesting animation, and once again showing that the fireflies show you interactable and harvestable items. Showing some more interactability with the environment here, the hunter swings from vine to vine to traverse. Meanwhile, the fireflies are showing him which direction to go to the monster, probably because he found the tracks earlier, and the fireflies, like some weird hunting dogs, now have the scent of the monster and show you where it is. Alright, there's a lot to analyze in this, so let's go step by step. First of all, the hunter put on this camouflage, which doesn't look like it would really help you, but in traditional Monster Hunter fashion, things that don't quite look realistic work really, really well. So even though he just has a couple of leaves over his head and his shoulders, it seems that the monster cannot spot him, and he is stealthing basically in the open right there next to the monster. So how exactly is this mechanic going to work? We don't know yet. We hope to find out more in the future. At the same time, we're getting the first really, really good look at the what I've been calling arm catapult, but I feel that it's actually more of an arm crossbow. You can actually see that it's loaded with a hard fruit once again, which earlier in the video the hunter used to knock down some fruit from a tree to then harvest. A quick look at the monster shows us what seems to be Capcom's take on kind of a semi-realistic T-Rex, but we can immediately see the huge horn there on the nose of the T-Rex, which is obviously, again in Monster Hunter tradition, a breakable part, which, you know, you can shatter into pieces and then pick up. So we'll see. Now, at the same time, the camouflage seemed to have been working really well against this monster. Is that because it has such small eyes? Does it maybe have a bad sense of smell? We don't know yet. Does smell even factor into it? Definitely camouflage worked against this monster. Doesn't mean that it's going to work against all of them, of course. Here the hunter is doing the traditional greatsword jump attack, so this gives me a lot of hope that the combat is going to be like what we're used to and not something weird and new that people might not want. Just like in Monster Hunter 4, the hunters will be able to jump on monsters and rodeo on them and do attacks while being on their backs, or in this case, on the monster's face. So again, traditional Monster Hunter gameplay right there. Alright, a lot of things happening here. The monster interacts with this tree, ramming into it to throw off the hunter, but that knocks down what could be an environmental trap or a trap pre-placed by the hunter. We don't know yet. It does look kind of like a ball of vines right there, and that actually traps the monster and entangles it, just like a monster trap would do. So whether this is pre-placed by the hunter or whether this is the hunter using the environment, maybe he actually steered the monster by rodeoing it, we don't know yet. It could definitely be pre-placed, but in this case, I think this is supposed to be environmental interaction. At the same time, this also shows us something which is another new mechanic the hunters have, which looks like a grappling hook. The hunter is flying through the air, actually uses the grappling hook to pull himself back towards the monster and on its back, while the monster is actually still trapped. So there you can see it. It's a grappling hook. The hunter can use it, pulls himself onto the monster, and thereby doesn't land and maybe doesn't take any damage from it. We don't know yet. We don't have any HUD. I could see it being a mechanic, not just to stay on the monster, but also to keep yourself from taking more damage from actually being flung onto the ground and, taking impact damage. Here we have a blink it and you'll miss it kind of glimpse of the monster actually having transformed a little bit and now having these, well, what looks like wings, I guess, on the back or something else. We don't know what it uses that for. Maybe it can jump with that. Anyway, it's following the hunter here, and it clearly has these growing out of the back where beforehand it didn't have them, meaning that monsters can probably transform. This shows how the monsters follow the hunter into different areas, in this case actually breaking through an entrance that would have normally been too small for it, but while the hunter could just pass through it. Another instance of the grappling hook being used. In this case, it attaches to what looks like a glowing spot, also being marked by your fireflies. I reckon that these are the only spots you can use the grappling hook for, so it's used for mobility during fights and to get yourself back onto the monster. In that scene, once again, the monster chases the hunter, showing us how it can even chase him through these smaller hallways, meaning that you're not safe anymore. There are no level transitions which will save you from the monster. It will follow you. Here's an even better look at the monster now having its wings out and having transformed. It even looks a little redder to me than before. This scene once again showing off the arm crossbow and the environmental interaction. The hunter uses his crossbow to shoot that large rock which is being held by those vines, and it then, after being hit, comes crashing down onto the monster, possibly causing huge damage. Again, environmental interaction seems to be big. In this scene, the monster seems to be using a very strong attack on the hunter, having caught him in its jaws, throwing him up in the air, biting down on him, and then spitting him out. Whether this is a kill animation or just a strong attack, we don't know yet. Also, if you watch in the background, you can see some more monsters there standing by. Those are herbivores, not sure what to do. And in the top right there on the tree, you can actually see smaller predators wondering if they should join in on the fight or if they can probably eat a carcass of a hunter. Just like in Monster Hunter 4, the hunter here climbs up and jumps off, thereby evading a fire breath from the monster, and also showing us once again the jump attack with the greatsword. So this is pure Monster Hunter 4 right here. Like, I would almost go so far and say these are the same animations. Hits the monster, and then once again, traditional Monster Hunter, the backhand swing with the greatsword. Just look at this one more time. He climbs up with a little run, jumps off to evade the fire breath, into greatsword jump attack, hitting the weak spot. You can actually see little pieces coming off of that bone structure there. Right there, you can see them, little pieces falling off. And then the backhand swing into the head of the monster, also interrupting its attack. They show the monster can climb, so once again, nowhere seems to be safe this time around. Alright, let's analyze this. So the monster goes for the attack and misses. The hunter does a dodge roll anyway. This is once again the traditional Monster Hunter dodge roll. So for everyone who's been playing Monster Hunter, you know that dodge roll. You've done it a lot. Now then, a Rathalos comes in, confirming that yes, there will be multiple big monsters on the map. A minimum of 2. We don't know how many, obviously. Rathalos then attacks the other monster. At first with his claws, knocking it on its side, then following up with his flame breath directly onto the monster. Now, whether this is an animation specific for Rathalos fighting this monster, or whether it's a generic animation for Rathalos fighting ground-based monsters, we obviously don't know yet. What we can see is Rathalos then actually lands on the monster and has it pinned down, kind of like Rathalos can do in traditional Monster Hunter to the hunter. Rathalos also picking up the monster there, slightly lifting it. And this is when the hunter decides this is too much for me and sends off his signal flare. Here we see 3 hunters flying in on their flying lizards attached to them with their grappling hooks. This is because the single hunter sent out a signal flare, and we already know from the developers that the signal flare opens your game up to online players joining you to help you with the hunt. In this case, he had to face a Rathalos and the new monster at the same time. He decided, I need some help, and these 3 hunters here seamlessly join his game and then go to help him. And this seems to be the mode of transportation for how hunters get around over large distances, attach themselves to these flying lizards with their grappling hooks, and then fly in. A proper look at the hunter attached to the flying lizard with his grappling hook. Here the monster and the hunter are swept away by water, once again environmental interaction. What appears to be a bigger version of the smaller monsters we saw in the beginning of the trailer is swallowing a herbivore whole in this scene, showing us that finally we have some kind of food chain. In the top left there, we can see what might be a Rathian or a Rathalos flying around as well. The hunter here uses the traditional flash bomb fired from the arm crossbow to blind the monster and stop it in its tracks. Here the hunter uses a familiar greatsword mechanic, which is blocking to block the tail swipe. So once again, very traditional moveset being shown right here. This shows us that monsters falling asleep is still in the game, a mechanic that goes back to the very, very first title on PlayStation 2. And this also shows us the hunter sneaking past, something that you could always do in any Monster Hunter. A look at attack while climbing, also once again showing us that if little pieces fly away, you're probably hitting something breakable. This scene is something that a lot of people were afraid of when they saw, thinking that the character is wielding an actual machine gun. As you can see there though, while it looks very metallic, it seems to be just a regular bow gun that the character is using, only that it shoots full auto, which, let's be honest, with some of the other ammunitions that we already had in Monster Hunter, you could shoot your bow guns very, very fast. This is probably just a light bow gun. Thank you for watching this analysis of the trailer. I hope I could alleviate some fears of traditionalist Monster Hunter players, and I hope I could show some people who are interested in the game now some new things that might entice them to pick up the game. Have fun and see you in Monster Hunter World.